people have lost their credentials and data, it became a strategic asset for organization to maintain and keep their data secure. We actually evolved in the era of AI in the last 5 to 6 years, right? So there is still not a lot of systems in place to secure the data. What these intruders nowadays are doing is they're not actually carrying your data and getting it out of your network. They are encrypting the data in place with their ciphers, right? There's a structural gap, right? That how schools are treating cybersecurity. They are actually treating it like IT maintenance instead of operational risk. Most organizations will get breached. It's just a matter of time when they get breached.
All right. Welcome back to the Supported Learning Podcast. Welcome my special guest today actually, Faraz Ishaq. Welcome to the podcast, Faraz. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Good. I'm good. Thank you for making time to come on. It is awesome to connect with people adjacent to the educational space, more in the learning space, that are making an impact outside. And when we connected originally, I really wanted to kind of just learn about your background and your journey through education. And for parents listening out there, just because I think there's so much pressure on kids in their career paths. We really don't know, with AI being at the cutting edge it is, we don't know what's going to be out there. So I do want to give you a proper introduction. So we'll start off that, families often ask me about how to navigate the maze of college prep without wasting thousands of dollars. The answer usually involves finding the people who have figured out the rules of the game and how to kind of hack the system. And so I'm thrilled to have Faraz Ishaq here today because he is the Senior Director of Advanced Services at Cohesity, leading global teams in AI-powered data security and cyber resilience. He has spent his career helping organizations survive ransomware attacks, data breaches, and catastrophic data loss. But here's what makes him different. He doesn't just think about technology, he thinks about people. His core framework is something called the confidence gap, and that's the idea of being biggest vulnerability in any system isn't just software, it's the humans who aren't trained to use it securely. It sounds absolutely correct. So we're going to dive in why schools are now ground zero for cyber attacks, what that means for families' data, and what this means for just the future of education and learning entirely. So again, Faraz, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I've given the highlight reel. How does one make their way into cybersecurity, data protection? Just kind of give me the background of how it all started.
Also, it started for me as an engineer for a very large insurance organization here in the United States. And when I started working with them, that was my first exposure almost 22 years ago. That was my first exposure to data management and how organizations require to manage the data and how it should be available in event of disasters. So it's going back almost 21 years ago now, that during Hurricane Katrina, my employer deployed us in Louisiana, and they lost their data, not data centers, but they had data closets in many different places around New Orleans area. And they started to process the claims faster in that area to make mobile processing centers available for people. And that was the challenge. We always thought that we have data available, we have infrastructure available. But when it came to the pressure of exercising all the processes which you put together, that's where stress actually came in and the systems started to fail. It was not because of technology, but it was people were not rehearsed well and rehearsed enough to exercise what they should have done to make the data available to their processors to process the claims faster. So that's where the journey started. That's where I started learning and started looking into more that how to make data available faster to the end users so they can make the right decisions. So this is where the journey started almost 21 years ago. Prior to that, I was more in robotics.
So was there even 20 plus years ago, was there even cybersecurity as a degree out there, or was it more of something else that adjacent to it that you naturally fell into?
Yeah, it was. Cybersecurity's concepts were out there since the web started, right? Since www was in place. I grew up looking into many different hacking or reading into many different hacking articles that the data is being hacked and security has been breached and people have lost their credentials and data to some intruder. And again, mostly as of no use, but people were doing in 90s, people were doing it for fun, I think. But then it became a strategic asset for organization to maintain and keep their data secure, and sovereignty of data became more important as we learned about PI data being available on the web for many different customers. So it did evolve, the concept did evolve, and it has been a long journey. It has been out there. The concepts were out there for, I would say, 30 some years now.
So how does that, I mean, obviously you've probably been working on AI a lot longer before the public even knew what AI is, but now just with the explosion of AI tools out there, and literally almost every tech company has some version of a platform. And so now all we've done is accelerated, I believe, probably data security breaches or potential, is that AI is just becoming a huge data centralization. What are the implications for that? Because I mean, I have ChatGPT, I have Claude, I have all these things. Like, where is that data going, and what is it going to possibly be used for?
So we actually evolved in the era of AI in the last 5 to 6 years, right? So there is still not a lot of systems in place to secure the data, which people can have access to, right? Now, AI, when it comes to data security, how AI comes in is at two fronts. First, it tries to, there are systems out there who tries to self-defend themselves when there's a cyber attack or a breach in motion, right? So there are systems out there who are trying to protect the data upfront from being breached. If all corridors are down and the data is breached and your systems are breached, people can have access to your data, right? They can have access to your primary data as well. But what the insurance is everybody buying into these days is the secondary data, which is the backup data, which you have created in other systems. So at Cohesity, I think we started looking into this concept right from the beginning. Our founder actually looked into it, and he started with an immutable file system. So the immutable file system is what it provides you is if your systems are breached and somebody has access to your data, they cannot, change the state of data in place. So when the data is residing on a file system, you cannot encrypt the data from an external key. What these intruders nowadays are doing is they're not actually carrying your data and getting it out of your network. They are encrypting the data in place with their ciphers, right? And they are asking for ransom, that if you want to have access to your data back, then you have to provide me X number of Bitcoins for me to allow you to have access to your data. Okay, great. But what we did is we created a immutable file system for your secondary data, where your backup on your secondary file systems, your data is landing as backup data, right? And intruder cannot change the state of the data, right? And then we brought in AI to identify the data which is clean. So if the data is infected at source level, and if it is copied to a target or application device, right, the data is still bad or is still, you can say, infected. But with the help of AI, what we are evolving here at Cohesity is we are reading into the data, identifying the clean sectors of the data, and see what cumulatively we bring back, the data which is clean. So when you recover the data, you are recovering on a clean system, and the data set which is being recovered is also clean. So you can restart faster, you can recover faster, right? And you can make your data available to your consumers faster, right? So decision making is key in this era. And since your data is available faster, you are back to business faster as well. So your downtime significantly get reduced with the help of proper strategies and the technology.
So, cybersecurity obviously probably is really intense in the financial sectors, in the business sector. But what about the educational sector? What are you seeing with educational organizations in potentially the risks of parents and students' data being there? Because obviously, education is governed by FERPA, similar to what HIPAA is, Federal Rights and Education and Privacy Act. But now there is somewhat, at least from seeing inside my school, is there is resistance to be very protective of what AI systems schools are giving kids access to because of who secures the data. And so what are you seeing, I guess, what are the potential risks that parents, students, and potentially schools aren't even thinking about from a cybersecurity standpoint?
Yeah. So I would say that there's a structural gap, right? That how schools are treating cybersecurity. They are actually treating it like IT maintenance instead of operational risk, right? So there is a big structural gap in schools when it comes to cybersecurity. Again, in most districts, security sits with a small IT team, which is already, I would say, oversubscribed to manage the devices, networks, and support tickets and whatnot, right? But ransomware is not a help desk issue. It's a continuity issue, right? So imagine your Google Workspace. If your Google Workspace gets compromised, your LMS will be down. If your LMS is down, you're not teaching your students anything. You're actually practically shutting everything down because your Google Classroom provides, I would say, most commonly used utilities to the teachers and educators to use that and reuse the IP you have developed when you're teaching the kids. Now, in this case, what actually needs to be done is at the executive level, there should be an ownership of cyber risks, right? Somebody at the exec level, the superintendent and people above him have to identify or have to recognize the cyber risk, right? And they have to implement the strong identity controls across the board. Again, the schools will not have the systems what a financial institution will have, right? They have limited budgets and limited resources. They will not have a dedicated cyber resiliency team, not a dedicated CERT team as well, right? But some basic controls can be in place, like a universal MFA. Universal MFA across the board, every device being used will require a multi-factor authentication for every single user, regardless it is being kids, educators, administrations. The second thing is isolating your data. So isolating your data is more important. So the second copy or third copy of your data should be isolated and out of reach from everybody. Right? It should be only utilized when you want to perform the recoveries. And then you have to test your recoveries as well. So your IT team being very small, most likely they have many different tasks on their plates on a daily basis. But they have to dedicate some time to perform recoveries and rehearse recoveries to develop that muscle memory. That if you are breached, again, most organizations will get breached. It's just a matter of time when they get breached. But when you get breached, if you have rehearsed your processes and systems enough times, right, your muscle memory has developed that how quickly you can come back up again, right? Your recovery time objective is met within the practices and the systems you have in place. And if you have rehearsed it well enough, then you'll be able to be up and running faster than a lot of people who don't rehearse their recoveries. So these are the systems, they have to be in place. These are the processes, they have to be in place. And again, usually systems systems don't fail. Processes, again, they are written with with good intentions and tested as well in past, right? What fails is when human being, they usually panic during under the stress. And when they panic under the stress, the recoveries take longer. And again, your downtime increases significantly. So when cybersecurity is buried in IT, it becomes reactive. When leadership owns it, it becomes more resilient. So leadership has to understand this gap upfront and treat cybersecurity as an operational risk rather than an IT maintenance cycle.
So essentially, we should be stress testing when times are good to get ready for when there is a time that's bad.
Yep, that is correct. And it should be tested, I would say, if not quarterly, then every 6 months or every year, there should be a testing mechanism in place.
That's so parallel to what we do in test prep for our company in terms of it's not necessarily lack of intelligence. We have very smart kids. It's just they've never been stress tested in those environments. And so the first time they are stress tested is on the actual exam, and they've done virtually no real world simulation and prep, and then they freeze and they kind of bomb. We're also seeing that in the mental health space in education too, is that I think there has been I'm trying to lead the charge away from it, but there has been a big swing to my kid has anxiety and depression. And for whatever reason, now I'm not saying it's not there, but there is this growing epidemic, and instead of resilience, creating safe ways to test those and build some resilience towards it, we're just avoiding it at all cost. And it seems like in the cyber tech world, that is a recipe for disaster, because it's not a matter of if, like you said, it's when.
Yes, exactly. And again, you put the right analogy, I would say, that this is what you guys are doing in schools as well. My personal experience when I was preparing myself for GRE, I practically went through every single topic and concept which I was supposed to study for my GRE exam. And I was working with one of my professors as well, because he was, I would say, he was my mentor during my undergrad. So he also suggested me the same thing, that you have to have a certain number of reps, right, already completed before you can get into an actual testing. You have to take those practice exams seriously, and you have to take it so many times that you don't crack under stress. And that advice from him certainly helped me, that I tested it enough times. I tested myself enough times during the pre-test or what you call practice exams, that when I actually went for my actual GRE exam, it was again, I had the muscle memory already developed to execute it during that time. And again, when we are doing these practice tests, we are not timing ourselves, but it is very important that we should time ourselves as well. And again, same concept within cybersecurity, which is considered as RTO, that what is your recovery time objective? So if you have to recover a system within 10 minutes or a 15-minute window, your processes should be in place. You have practiced enough times to execute it within 15 minutes, so you can completely up and running in 15 minutes. Same concept applies in testing as well. That if you are given a quota of 10 minutes to finish a section, you should have done it so many times successfully and finish that particular section within 10 minutes. When it comes to the actual exam, it is basically, I would say, it is easy for you to execute your the steps, what you have done or learned, to make sure that you are finishing that particular section within 10 minutes. So it is, again, same concepts, that how you execute during your test is pretty much the same thing for cybersecurity as well, that how you recover your data within specified time.
So when a school gets hit with ransomware, what actually happens? Because I saw a stat that 60% of K-12 schools have experienced at least one cybersecurity incident in the last 2 years, and ransomware attacks have increased over 23%. So what happens with the data that's exposed? What operations are shut down, and what is the impact to students?
Yeah, so impact to students. Okay, so let's just start from the top. So during a cyber incident, if your systems are breached, now somebody is holding you hostage for your data, then you won't have access to your data, your primary data. Now, what systems are breached first is where it starts. Suppose if you are protecting, or if you are using your LMS, your identity controls, your emails at a hosted provider, which can be in this case Azure or AWS, they are actually just providing you the infrastructure, right? They are providing you the software and the infrastructure, but how you are using it, it's on you. How you are maintaining your, I would say, identity control and identity privileges, it's on you, right? How many users are out there? This is where actually the cyber attacks initiates, is from the users who have oversubscribed privileged within your systems. So suppose your front desk person pretty much has the same access to your email system or email ID security at the same level what your IT administrator has, right? So that's where the problem starts. They look for people who are easy to target, right? Or the IDs which are easy to target, or available IDs with extra privileges which are not needed to maintain your ID management on the system. That's how they get in, right? First thing they compromise, first thing I would say they will neutralize is your messaging and communication systems. So first they will, as soon as they neutralize your communication systems, now you don't have access to notify anybody, communicate with anybody within your organization. And now you are hostage pretty much with no communication. And now you're waiting for them to come back to you and tell you that what they're looking for in terms of releasing the control from your systems. After that, usually they go out and they encrypt pretty much all your IP which you have developed under your LMS. right? And they try to access the personal information, the PI information for every student, every employee you have within your organization, medical records, because again, every school pretty much has the medical facilities available within their school, the nurses, their systems, and they will try to get hold of as much data as possible, which they can reuse to recreate your ID, right? Maybe today, maybe 5 years later, maybe 10 years later, to recreate your ID, right? And misuse the assets associated with your IDs. And the ID is not limited to your school email account. The ID is associated with pretty much everything you carry with yourself, your social security, your addresses, your date of birth, your medical records, and pretty much everything what the school has access to. Your parents' social security as well at times, right? Their date of birth as well, when they're signing up for various different classes and programs at school, where they are becoming your guarantor. So their information is also in there. Then your family, friends' information is on there because your parents are allowing them to pick you up from school. So sometimes you are providing that information, and that data is also accessible. So all that information is accessible to the intruders. Now, what they will do, they will encrypt it, and they will encrypt your data, and they will ask you for ransom in some form. And you'll end up paying that ransom if you don't have a clean copy isolated from their access. If they cannot access your isolated copy, then you have a possibility of recovering without paying a ransom. And that's where proper systems and processes come in play. So they can recover, you can recover the data faster, and then you can be up and running and deny any ransom to be paid.
So that's pretty scary. That's insane that there's that much information. So do you find it, I mean, I don't know how much you've looked into schools or seen into schools, are how much more vulnerable are they than medical facilities and financial institutions?
The schools are more vulnerable because they don't have dedicated teams, and you can say the modern technology in place at all times. They have technology. Schools are, I would say, the school districts are usually at the tail end of adoption of technology. If you compare that what financial institutions and what hospitals have access to. In enterprise environment, the cyber resilience is layered. They have dedicated security teams 24/7, monitoring, red teams, compliance team, budget for simulation, executive level oversight, CISOs, CIOs, and CTOs are working together. Resilience is distributed across specialties, right? And specialists as well available to them. Subject matter experts are available to them. In school districts, the entire structure often compresses into a small IT team. Sometimes there will be 3 or 4 people at max, right? They are managing your devices, your Wi-Fi, your classroom tech, your vendor integration, your daily support tickets, and anything which fails in between, password resets, and everything else for the kids, right? So what breaks actually is separation of roles. There's no dedicated security team and no dedicated operations team at school. So no one focused purely on threat detection, no one running quarterly recovery simulations. Cyber becomes one responsibility among many for them. And under the budget constraints, the long-term resilience investment get postponed in favor of immediate operational needs. So if you need a newer LMS system, you'll be spending money there first rather than having state-of-the-art cyber resiliency practice within your organization. So the danger isn't that school IT leaders don't understand the risk. It's that they don't have the structural support enterprises do. And that's why the solution for schools isn't copying Fortune 500 playbooks. It is simplifying architecture, elevating cyber risk to leadership, and designing the resilience for lean teams. That's what is missing from school districts. Because resilience isn't about having more people. It's about having cleaner systems and clarity within the systems as well.
And I think you said, or at least it sounds like, people probably often think that cybersecurity, ransomware hacks, this is an IT issue. It falls on the IT department when we're talking about schools. But really more, it sounds like an educational issue. How's that? How is it so that it is an educational issue? What do you mean by that? And what are we not doing?
Yeah. So again, very good point. You mentioned that this is not about the spend only, right? It is about the systems as well. It's about the process as well. So buying a security system or software gives you controls. building confidence and digital literacy gives you the actual operational effectiveness, right? So buying just a software is not something which will solve your problems, right? It will give you the control to solve the problem, but you have to have the literacy within your org to operationalize the correct use of that IT, right? And to impose operational effectiveness across the board. So when when the schools are buying security software, endpoint protection, email filtering, backup platforms, and all that, right? That's great. Spending should be there. But those controls only work as designed if people understand them. So what a cyber alert means to you, right? Which signal matters to you that you have to react or you don't have to react, or if it's an anomaly or not an anomaly, right? How to escalate incidents within your organization, right? The identity permissions, which you already touched, are structured or not, right? And how the recovery workflows will actually execute. This is the whole recipe you have to put together to make it work right. If it is not put together correctly, then it will not work. I would say eventually it will work, right? But the time it will take to recover the systems correctly and operationalizing it, right? That time actually is the key. Can you imagine your school system is shut down for 2 weeks? We in Northeast last week, we had a snowstorm, right? And the schools were shut down for the whole week. Now, what if the state requirement is to have certain number of days within the school year, you have to be in school. If you are out for the whole week and not studying at all, right? Then you have to rebuild that momentum first for the students. That's a very difficult thing to do, right? Getting everybody in motion again and with the same speed. But at top of that, you have lost those 4 to 5 days of operational, what you call your operational requirement of a school that a school has to operate. Suppose in our district it is 180 days. So minimum you have to operate the school for 180 days. If you are out for 5 days, they are adding those 5 days towards the tail end of the year, right? Imagine the cost it will take for you to add other 5 days within your school districts for education.
Right. So yeah, I mean that is huge, and the man, it makes me give a whole new respect for our IT department, what they're doing, because I know we've increased security, but it's just there are so many independent systems that don't talk, and there's so many probably points of vulnerability.
Yep.
Because like you said, we just, in education, the leadership is working potentially in isolation with the IT, not always thinking of these things. And I know where you're located in the Northeast, say like we're school districts, we're not county-based system. So I would assume that county-based systems probably have a little bit more integrity because they operate at a much larger organizational level than individual school districts. And so with the financial pressures on individual school districts, the smaller ones are probably the most vulnerable because that's just going to keep getting eaten up of like, we can't afford this stuff. Yeah, no. So if I could switch gears, because I want to focus like a couple of these last questions here on students, because I get a lot of kids in the AP program and the SAT program and in the college admissions program. A lot of them are interested in STEM, interested in something with data science or computers, right? And there aren't a lot of options in schools, especially for those advanced degrees. You know, the AP Computer Science Principles, AP Computer Science A is like the two big ones. I believe there's an AP Personal Finance coming up. I believe there's an AP Data Security or Cybersecurity one in the works coming out too.
Yep.
But you know, K-12 is usually a little bit behind the rest of the world in terms of educating or learning. I guess, what do you say to a parent of a student who is interested in going in there, but I guess, you know, juxtaposed to how AI is going to disrupt this field and what kids should do now while they're in high school thinking about going into a field like yours?
Yep. So let's say the use of AI will become a norm. 30 years ago, 35 years ago, having a computer lab in a high school was a privilege, right? Having access to advanced systems which are built on AI these days, right, is maybe not a norm today, but it will become a norm, right, in future. And again, it is coming very fast. What will happen in between now and 5 years is these systems will evolve a lot faster. If regulation does not evolve fast enough, then we will see the uptick in adoption of AI and AI systems within our lives will be extremely steep. So keeping yourself up to speed with that is not going to be a challenge. It will be very challenging. It will not be an option. It will become a requirement very soon. Now, how you can keep up with this and how can you plan for this today? So I'll tell you what I've been doing with my daughter. That what I'm asking them is to understand whatever is repeatable within your day, whatever steps you are taking to learn something today, right? And whatever out of that is a repeatable task, you have to do it every single time whenever you're doing a test or prepping for a test, right? Try to automate that first, right? Reduce the churn from it, right? And for that, you need to understand the basics of eliminating the churn from whatever you are doing. The two concepts will remain there forever, right? Elon Musk said it multiple times, and I agree with him, that your physics will remain there and your maths will remain there. The basics of maths and physics will remain there. They are not going anywhere. Everything is built on the concepts which are taught at a very basic level in maths, right? Now, the important thing going forward would be that all those math concepts are actually solving the very complex problems you may have with data security, with data analytics, right? And also with some overall computer science, right? So the kids who are planning on taking on these challenges in next 5 to 10 years, they need to have very, I would say, firm baseline created for them that how various different systems they interact with each other. So how your email system interacts, how your Gmail is used as an ID authenticator for thousands of apps out there, where they provide you a single sign-on option with your Gmail accounts, right? How those systems are put in place together today, right? And they can build on top of that knowledge set. And I don't think that kids will have the same structure in education in next 5 years. I think the STEM programs are realizing and recognizing the need of it. I've seen many platforms online. They have been spun in the last, I would say, 2 years, where the use of AI is explained and simplified for people, for them to adopt it, right? And then on top of that, if you have the core computer science and management information systems skills, right? That's when you will develop better systems. You will understand the systems faster, right? And adoption will improve automatically. Once you adopt these AI systems within your workflows on daily basis, within the schools as well, right? Your kids will learn how to use these systems to enhance their learnings, right? For that, they have to understand computer science, the basic concepts and core concepts of computer science, core concepts of maths, right? And with these two baseline, I would say, elements, they can build whichever direction they want to go to. Cybersecurity is a totally different ballgame compared to what AI is. But together, right, you can define or design self-defending systems in a cyber event, which are based on AI and the knowledge which LLMs carry with them, right, to defend your data as well. So again, it's a combination of things, but at school, at the K-12 level, I would say the schools should focus more on not only on programming, right? I've seen Python is being taught in schools these days, not only on programming. Like, again, you have to start exposing your kids to the systems which are already made, right? Every kid will not become Zuckerberg, right? But using the AI and using the core concepts, right, you can build better systems, better technology, right? And the outcome would be a lot different in the next 5 years for what we are teaching our kids in school today.
Thank you. I'm going to transition to our last part of the segment of the podcast we call lightning round. So basically, just ask a question. First thing that comes to mind. I do break my own rules if you want to explain, but no explanation needed. But if you want to, you may. All right. just a bunch of rapid fire questions. So I guess number one, most overrated cybersecurity measures schools think to protect them.
I'm sure you guys have this too. The annual compliance-based awareness training.
Okay.
No one remembers after a month, right? That is, I think, the most overrated. And again, it's not only in the schools, it's everywhere else as well.
Right.
That you go through this compliance training on yearly basis. Yeah, that's, I think, the most overrated thing.
Most underrated thing families should do to protect their digital lives.
Trying to, what you call, apply MFA everywhere.
Okay. Two-factor.
Two-factor authentication, wherever you can apply that.
One thing parents overthink about their kids' online safety.
So most people, they usually think that my kids are exposed to some unnecessary risk online. Only expose them to systems which are in place to monitor what kids are doing. And I'll give you one example. I'm sorry for this being rapid. I actually did it with my kids. So on YouTube, the content is not governed, right? It's available. Everything is available to everybody. But at Disney, the content is governed by somebody within Disney's organization.
Right.
That what you are developing and exposing to kids, right? So try to expose your kids to governed systems rather than free-for-all platforms. And that's where I think you can reduce the risk of your kids getting exposed to something which they shouldn't be.
Okay.
From cybersecurity standpoint, do not let them fill forms online, right? Always do it for them.
Okay. If you could whisper one piece of advice to a parent of a high school student about digital security, what would it be?
About digital securities, I would say interesting. So digital, it will be pretty much same thing what we discussed today.
Right.
Yeah, that they need to make sure that their kids are not exposed to, I would say, systems. First off, parents will have a hard time identifying what system is reliable and what is not, right? But from data security and digital security standpoint, I would say that the responsible use of IT is important, right? And if kids are exposed to, not kids, but if they are not responsible in what they are consuming today from IT, it will expose them to unnecessary risk.
One resource every family should have for digital literacy.
Oh, one resource. Yeah, I would say you cannot name just one resource. There is so much out there. Yeah, it's combination of things which will work together, right? For your, like, suppose password protection, right? First thing, I use 1Password all the time. There are other utilities out there as well, right? So it starts from their identity. Then what systems I am using, as I just said, if my kid is young, then what they're watching is important for me and important to me as well, right? So I will make sure that they are watching something which is already rated for kids. Then again, it's everything which is out there these days. They need to have access to that. I agree with that. They have to have access and exposed to everything, whatever they do today. But monitoring is more important to me. Again, I have monitoring set up across almost every platform with alerts, and I see that what alerts are created, some of them are useful for me, some of them are not. But yeah, you should be aware of what your kids are exposed to, and you should put proper guardrails around it.
What's the next big cybersecurity thing or threat heading towards schools and that no one is talking about?
So everybody heard this term called quantum computing, right?
Quantum computing?
Yeah, so quantum computing exposes a risk as well. What it does is actually allows all the intruders to have access to faster and smarter systems at a very, I would say, at a very elementary level, right? What they develop on top of that it's going to be risky. So my recommendation to school systems is school systems can combine together. Again, the county concept you mentioned, we have a school district, so I didn't have a chance to see into the county-based school systems where systems are, I would say, more centralized, right? So get together, the school districts should get together, create some regional concept of school districts. Again, only for IT. I'm not talking about redistricting and all that, but only at the IT level where a centralized IT unit can be created which can manage and govern the use of IT at all these school systems. Because again, you'll end up spending money if you are compromised. You might as well do it proactively and don't get compromised, right? And for that, if multiple schools can work together, school districts can work together to form an alliance to spend money on IT and systems and people and processes as well, that would be better. But again, imagine that you are trying to protect yourself against unknown enemy, and they have all the what you call systems available to them because of all the systems availability these days to the intruders. They will come up with very smart and sophisticated ways of attacking you. You need to be prepared upfront for that.
Well, Faraz, this has been incredibly valuable. And honestly, it's kind of a wake-up call. I know parents and educators are probably going to want to go deeper or learn more, but what's the best place for them to find you and just learn more about Cohesity?
Oh, can you repeat your question?
What's the best place? Where's the best place for parents to learn more about like you and Cohesity and what it does?
So again, our website, cohesity.com, definitely go there. When I joined Cohesity, I had a few conversations with the leaders, and I realized and recognized right away that they are trying to change how we look at data security and the overall availability of the data, right? There are many concepts out there. There are many organizations are working out there. But if you want to learn more about Cohesity, then definitely go to cohesity.com. We have the latest and greatest concepts of data security being discussed on our website. And that's the place to start.
All right. Faraz, again, thank you. I appreciate your time and pulling back the curtain on this. And for everyone else listening, remember, cybersecurity is important. Digital security is important. The ever-changing world, we must do everything we can to kind of protect the digital infrastructure your family depends on. So we put everything we discussed in the show notes. And again, thank you for tuning in to the Supported Learning Podcast. We'll see you next time.